Hello once again, race fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Dropping the Hammer Racing Hour here on The Grueling Truth, where legends speak. I'm Alex Gray, along here with Michael Fite. Today we have a very special guest here with us. It's ARCA racing driver Brad Smith joining us here today. Brad, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. So to start things off, Brad, you want to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your racing background?
Sure. I started out in ARCA, in the Supercar Series back in 1988. We ran part-time for about, our first 10 seasons, and then we went full-time back in 2000 and have been pretty much full-time since then. And tapered off in 2012 due to a lack of money, and then James Hilton picked me up as a driver in 2014, and I was with him, up till when he passed away 2 years ago. And, when that tragic accident happened, we decided we were going to try and keep the team going, in his honor and memory, and we've been actually doing fairly decent since then. I think we're sixth in driver points right now in ARCA. So that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. And of course, you just came off of a great race at Winchester, scoring a top 10.
32 years of crying, 32 years of frustration. Brad Smith comes across the line for his first top 10.
Woo!
Yeah, that's pretty much how we felt. It was good to get that monkey off our back, so to speak. Just we're a pretty low budget team, so for us, a top 10 is like winning a race. So it was good to do that, and hopefully we can get another one this year before the season's over. That'd be real nice.
Yeah, especially when you consider the caliber of competition you often have in ARCA, at least used to have. Because, I know a lot of people bring up now you only get, like between 10, 15 cars per race. And it used to be you would have more people entering these than a cup race. So,
Yep.
It's like having that kind of competition for such a small team, it really is difficult to do that. And so after 30 years of, just toiling away at that, that's got to feel really good.
Oh, yeah. Yep. In I know the car count itself is down, but I'll tell you what, there's still at least 10 cars that show up that are like $1 million type teams. So it's still pretty tough to get in the top 10, even though the car count is down. So we're grateful that happened finally.
Yeah, and especially among the back markers, you usually have a pretty good battle going there. I mean, I think not only you, but also Con Nicolopoulos and Eric Cadell, both of whom I've worked for, have both gotten their first top 10, which, that was just incredible to watch. Just being able to be there and see that was awesome to see.
Yep. Well, we thank you. We appreciate that. And Eric and Con and also Mike Basham was part of that top 10 group in the Winchester race, and he's been a good friend of ours for a long time. In fact, he and his dad and I were pretty much teammates there for about a 5, 6, 7 year period. So it was just good for the budget guys to get their day, so to speak. So it's cool. Hopefully it'll happen again. In fact, I think all four of us, me, Con, Mike, and Eric, we're all in the Memphis race coming up tomorrow. So we're all hoping to duplicate those top 10s if possible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You got Memphis coming up. Anything you want to preview for that race, or how are things looking? How are things feeling for Memphis?
Well, for us, again, we almost are racing our budget or our wallet instead of the other guys, and this late in the season, the budget's about gone. So we're coming to show up and stay in the running, stay in the points. We want to get a top 10 for driver points for the year. which we pretty much have that wrapped up as long as we don't miss a race between now and Kansas. But again, it's not like we're going out to win the race. We're just going out there to put in as many laps as we can. And us smaller guys have what we call the race within the race, where, you know, we know we're not going to beat Chad Bryant or Venturini's or Ty Gibbs' car, but, you know, again, if I beat the guys like Mike Basham, Eric Caudell, or Kahn, for us, we feel like we won the race, you know, or, you know, we call it the king of the shit pile for a week. And, you know, just one of those things that, you know, we know what our budget is, we know what their budget is, and, you know, when you can beat the guys that are on similar plateau as you are, it feels good. I mean, you know, we're not going to deny that. And, again, we'd love to be running with the big boys and going for the real checker flag, but, you know, it's just really not in the cards this season. And until we get some, you know, fairly decent sponsorship, you know, it won't happen until we get that behind us.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
You know, I think both you and I can kind of contribute to that. I mean, you know, we both come from the same background. Heck, you know, you and I have the same sponsor, NASCAR Low Teams.
Okay.
But I think we both know how hard that is to compete in the sport, you know, on such a small budget like that.
Yep, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the past couple of years, it's pretty much just been, you know, what Low Teams gives me that allowed me to race. You know, that's unfortunately just the position I'm in. You know, I don't come from money. You know, I don't come from a racing family. So it's really just about making all those connections I can and taking the funding where I can get it. Which, you know, I'm certainly grateful to everybody.
Yep.
You know.
Same with us, and we're glad Low Teams picked us up and decided to help us out a little bit as much as they could. And again, they're helping us make connections, you know, getting things out on Twitter, you know, just making us more valuable to a potential sponsor. And again, that means a lot to us, and we definitely appreciate their help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly.
Definitely. All right. So, this week is also,
you know, I just kind of want to throw this out there. You know, it's great that now you have that top 10. You know, I think now there's two things that people kind of remember you for now is that you have this top 10 going against ARCA. And, you know, unfortunately, I think before that, a lot of people, you know, mainly remembered that wreck you had at Talladega a few years ago. But, you know, I don't think that's a claim to fame. Any driver once.
Right. Yeah. I'd rather be known for winning one than tearing a wall down.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can say this, though. I think everybody was just glad to see you walk away from that. I mean, I remember watching that one, you know, just sitting on my couch. I think that was the first time I'd ever heard your name was, you know, I just saw the car go straight into the wall. And just thinking, oh, my goodness.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. You know, the driver, I've never been in that situation, fortunately, but I just can't imagine what that must be like. And, you know, it's something I hope I never have to. You know, I certainly accept it if it does, but.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, we all know it kind of, it's the risk you take driving a race car. Two things, you know, luckily that wall had a safer barrier on it because at that time very few tracks had a safer barrier on the inner wall. You know, a lot of tracks had started putting them on the outer walls, but if I'm not mistaken, Daytona and Talladega might have been the only two tracks at that time that had that barrier on the inner wall. And needless to say, I mean, I can say almost for certain that barrier saved my life. So, you know, thankful for that. I don't know how much you guys know about safer barriers, but a guy named Dr. Dean Sicking actually designed those things. And, you know, very thankful for his work and very thankful for the fact that a lot of tracks have put those things up. And, you know, they've saved a lot of lives in the last 10 years for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, and looking back, I would say that I think that may have been the first race with it there, because, I can remember, at the previous plate race, which was Daytona, was when Kyle Busch broke his leg because he hit the inside wall really around that same spot.
Right.
And it was not protected. So.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, in the stock cars, they're built really well. They're built to take a hell of a hit. In our case, the throttle was jammed wide open, and I didn't have any steering or any brakes, so I was just really along for the ride until we hit something. So, the driver's feet is still a little bit of a vulnerable area, and that's what most of my injuries were. Everybody thought I had broken ankles and all that kind of stuff, and honestly, I did not break a bone in that accident. I had sprained ankles, but when the roll bar broke loose, it dug into the skin almost like an ice cream scooper, and that was what the serious injuries were. Was it took skin grafts to kind of get the form and the muscle back the way it belonged. The bone structure was okay. It just took a lot of healing, in a skin graft to get that ankle back the way it should have been. So it was a long recovery, but I recovered, so all is good.
Yeah, that's really all you can hope for. And yeah, that's kind of interesting to hear because I had heard broken ankles too.
Right. And I read all the articles, and trust me, it felt like they were broken. But no, I didn't. Nothing broke. There's no hardware in either ankle. It was just long recovery again because of the damage to the muscle and tissue and needing to have everything graft back together.
Yeah, I think especially in the last 20 years, of course, NASCAR or not just NASCAR, but auto racing in general, NASCAR, ARCA, and other forms of motorsports. I think they've done a lot in terms of safety and protecting these drivers. And again, I just can't help but praise them for a lot of the stuff. All the lives have probably saved because of all these different moves, like making the Hans device mandatory, of course, making the safer barriers mandatory, and everything else.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. We had in ARCA, we used to have a guy named Mark Williams that was head of safety, and before that, he had a brother named John Williams that was big into safety, and they were both big pushers of making the Hans device mandatory and getting ARCA more engaged with some of the safety stuff. We had a lot of stuff where if you had it, it was fine. Now it has to meet SFI standards. It can't be out of date. And they've done a lot of things to really make it more safe. And, again, we're thankful for that effort. And I think the results have paid off because I don't think we've lost a driver in ARCA since they made the Hans mandatory. And when I first got into ARCA, I think we were losing about a driver a year. So that's how much the safety's picked up just in the time I've been racing. So, very grateful for their efforts, and they're still working at it hard. I know they go to a lot of safety seminars. They stay updated, with what's going on at the SEMA show as far as safety goes. And they've got 3 or 4 officials that are dedicated strictly to making the race cars and the driver's equipment safer. So very thankful for that effort on their part. And like I said, the results are there. Especially a guy like me that's been around for a while, I've seen the change, and it's been definitely for the good of the sport.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. The sport has evolved so much from when you started to now. It's amazing to look at, really.
Yep, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, because, I think I heard somebody say that, right before that happened, we had 3 deaths in 3 years. I believe they were Scott Baker, Blaise Alexander and Eric Martin. But Eric Martin, I've worked for Eric Cadell and Wayne Hickson in ARCA, so they've told me about that. And they still memorialize him on the car. So just seeing them make that effort towards making these cars safer is really incredible to see.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, very much so. I mean, I was there when Eric's accident happened, and that one was so tragic, and that basically resulted in the race safe system becoming mandatory in ARCA. That was the big driver behind that. Because before that, number one, we didn't have the race safe, and number two, spotters were not mandatory. They were recommended but not mandatory, and they saw that could have been prevented had there been a spotter up on the spotting stand.
Right.
So it unfortunately it took a tragedy for that to happen, but I think now that they're on the ball as far as safety goes, they're not waiting for tragedy to drive change. They're driving it right up front, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to swallow because as you improve safety, the cost goes up, and when you're on a budget, you'd rather be laying the money out on a motor or a chassis. But truth be told, the safety needs to be there because there's nothing worse than having to bury a race car driver. And in the long run, the safety's definitely picked up.
Yeah, that's always been the one thing I make sure I never cheap out on is safety equipment. Like that's the one thing I make sure, don't just try to cut costs here. Make sure you're actually getting something that's going to protect you if worst case scenario happens.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I was one of those guys that used to skimp maybe a little bit, you know what I mean? I, would try and find a cheaper alternative, and when you found one, you thought you did really good for yourself. But when I saw what those hospital bills were, for my accident, I was lucky I had, good insurance through my job, and we had the insurance through the racing group. And because that would have bankrupted me having to pay for, the surgeries. I mean, seemed to me it was somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 when all the, medical expenses got added up. I mean, at first I was keeping a spreadsheet of them to keep track and make sure everything got paid right. And, man, after a while I had to just quit because it's like, oh, man, these bills just kept rolling in. And, the helicopter ride alone, they wanted to charge $60,000, for a 20-minute helicopter ride. So I guess you can't spend too much on safety equipment when you compare it to the cost of having to fix yourself. So, I guess I took note of that, and I hope a lot of younger guys getting into this do the same thing, because I know most guys getting in, they don't have the big bucks like, the front runners do, and, they're going to skimp a little bit on safety stuff to try and make the car faster, and it's just not a good place to try and save money. It's really not. You got to have the right safety equipment, and I'm glad ARCA enforces it. It makes the sport safer. The sport's not popular when you start losing drivers, and it's just something that had to be done, and I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they stepped up to the plate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely see what you mean there. Of course, things have shaken up a lot this year with the pandemic and everything, but I have to ask, is there any specific track that you really love going to, that you love racing at over the many tracks you have driven at?
Well, Daytona is always special because it's Daytona. You know what I mean? You got to love that place for what it is in racing, and for what it represents. And it was the big one there for quite a while, and it's like our Super Bowl going there. And we usually have an extra day or two at that track compared to any other track. And then, of course, going to Florida in February after being stuck in snow for 3 months in Michigan, I mean, that's always really special. You know, it's just like turning the page, like, okay, we're starting a new season. You know, we get to see some warm weather finally, and it's just cool to be there. And, of course, we like Talladega. I mean, Talladega's a beautiful track. We've had some good runs there. You know, we've had some lead lap finishes that just outside the top 10, but still, you know, when you're on a team like a budget like ours and you can finish on the lead lap, you feel like you've won the race. And, you know, Talladega's a cool track. It's fun to drive. But, you know, it's one of those places where things change real fast. And, you know, I've only been airlifted out of racetracks twice, and both times it was Talladega. So, you know, you got to learn to respect a place like that.
Yeah.
But I also like the intermediates. You know, we had a lot of those mile-and-a-half tracks pop up, you know, right around the year 2000. You know, the Kentucky, Chicago, Nashville. You know, those tracks are nice because they're when they opened, they were super modern. You know, when I first started going to like Daytona and Talladega, we didn't have a enclosed garage. It was a covered area, but it didn't have sides or anything. And when we started going to some of those new intermediate tracks, they were just cool because you had a garage. You know, you could pull down the door at the end of the day, and you knew all your stuff was secure. And you know, it wasn't, if it was bad weather, it wasn't going to get all rain-soaked or anything like that. So those tracks were nice. And then I like the bull rings too. You take the Winchesters and the Salems where, you know, yeah, it's a half-mile track, but it's super high banked. And I've heard more than one long-time racer say, you know, if you can run good at Winchester and Salem, you can drive a race car. So, you know, those are, it's always fun to go there and have a good run. Makes you feel like you accomplished something, and then, you know, you're really part of the pack. And then we like the dirt tracks and the road courses. But, you know, for a budget team, the dirt tracks, you know, we've destroyed a couple cars there. And actually, same thing with the road courses. I mean, the road courses are fun. It's just like going to a go-kart track. But if you're not fast, you get in the way a lot on a road course, too. I mean, when you're switching from inside to outside, back to inside, you know, if you got a pack of fast cars coming, it's hard to stay out of the way. So, you know, we don't put quite the effort into the road courses or the dirt tracks, but that's just a budget thing for what we get to run there versus what we got to spend. You know, those are the most expensive races, so we have a tendency to, you know, it's kind of a low budget back marker team. We just don't quite try as hard there. So, and you hate going and not trying, but you know, the reality is if you run out of money halfway through the season, then you're just done. So,
right.
You know, it's a balancing act. I wish we didn't have to do it, but you know, you guys race on a budget, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. Of course, you mentioned the road courses. You got to run the Daytona road course, the same track that, of course, you know, drivers all around the world have gotten to race on. You know, including the Rolex 24 every January. So I'm sure that was, you know, a different scenario, different situation for you as well.
Yeah, actually, when we went to Daytona, we knew we were just pretty much doing a start and park for the road course race. You know, middle of the season, you know, we didn't have the money to buy two different sets of tires, you know, one rain set, one race slick. And the tires were unique for that race also, so it's not like we could, you know, grab some scuffs from one of the big teams and run on those. So we actually only did a lap at Daytona, and it had rained pretty heavy before the start of the race, and all we had were the slicks to go on, and I about spun out in the sharp chicane turn going 15 miles an hour. I mean, that's how slick it is on that track, you know, when it's wet and you only have racing slicks on. So we took the green and then pulled off, but again, that was a calculated decision on our part, so just something we had to do. I mean, we'd have loved to have raced it, but we had to save our pennies for the rest of the season. So that's pretty much what we did. But hopefully someday we'll go back there and run that one. I mean, it looked like a really nice course, a good course to race on, and of course it's Daytona, so who doesn't want to go to Daytona and run hard and good? But reality was that one just wasn't in the cards for us to run hard this year.
That's understood. That reminds me. After your top 10 at Winchester, you got a tweet from Parker Kligerman that, if I'm correct, he and his esports team were willing to buy you a set of tires for the next race.
Yep, and that was cool of him. Parker's a great guy. I mean, I'm sure you guys know he ran ARCA early in his career. So, he was familiar with ARCA. He probably remembered our team a little bit. But he was a class guy. I mean, he heard we had a post-race interview that kind of went viral. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know something was said about, we had to run the whole race on one set of tires. And, when you start getting over 150 laps on a set of tires, you start getting nervous about them. And I probably said something to that effect in the interview. And when he saw that, he's like, hey, I'd like to buy you guys a set of tires. So we contacted him about 2 days later, and, he said for sure he wanted to do it. So, we talked a little bit, talked about old times, running an ARCA and all that good stuff. And, I told him, I said, this year we're kind of wrapping up. We don't have the money to run super hard anywhere else. So I said, what if we just wait till next year when the tires can do us more good? And he was fine with that. He understood, and he said, yeah, I still want to do it for you. And so just grateful for a guy like that. I mean, true gentleman. I know he's had a successful career. I know he's doing well, doing some broadcasting and things like that. And, when a class guy like that recognizes you, it makes you feel like you got to be doing something right or they wouldn't be calling you. So yeah, we're still gonna get some tires from Parker. Just gonna wait till next season to do it. Probably at one of the intermediate tracks where tires really, really make a difference. So yeah, we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna get Parker's name on the car somewhere, somehow. However he wants it, and thankful for his support and. Just a great guy. I mean, I wish him the best. I really do. So.
Yeah, full of Corey LaJoy and just put his whole face on the car.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. There's Corey LaJoy on the car, and there's Corey LaJoy in the car.
Well, there you go. Never thought of that one, but you never know. We may just do that to him.
Why not? That's why I love NASCAR and the motorsports community. People know how to have fun and, enjoy themselves and be a little goofy every now and then.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, as much time as we spend doing this, as much time and as much money, I mean, most nights my brother and I are out in the pole barn till 10 o'clock at night working on this thing, and you put so much into it, but, man, at some point you got to enjoy it too, or else it just becomes a job. And I've never felt like racing's been a job. I mean, it's always been a labor of love. And we're going to have fun doing it. I mean, we pick on our own team members a little bit, joking around. Our PR guy had to help push start the car at Winchester, and when the car caught, I just took off, and he went flying, and I think that thing got more likes on Twitter or Facebook than us getting the top 10, because he's a big guy and he's just sprawled out, and his cell phone is midair, and a handful of Sharpies are midair, and my sister-in-law who took the picture clicked it at just the right moment, and So we've been teasing him all week about that one. We gotta let him stick to PR. Can't let him touch the car anymore. But yeah, we have fun with all our crew members. I mean, all of them are good guys. We got a handful of people that come and work on the car every once in a while. But then we also have a lot of guys located in different spots around the country that come to certain races. And, we've become really good friends with those guys. We appreciate their help. A lot of them travel on their own dime, which we really appreciate. And, I've met absolutely fantastic people in racing. Some of the best people I've ever met have been through racing. And, they're dedicated, they're wholesome people, they're down to earth, salt of the earth kind of people. And you just got to love them. You just got to love them for who they are and what they do. And, just the fact they love coming to a racetrack and helping us. And we love help. We love their help. We like having them help us. We like, hanging out with them after a day at the track, going out to dinner and stuff, and just seeing how their families are doing. So it's definitely a lot of camaraderie at the racetrack.
Oh, yeah. It's something I think we've all kind of seen with that.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who works in the sport knows how close everyone really is.
Oh, yeah. It's one big happy family, really, at the end of it.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, and it's not like a normal 9 to 5 where you just, you're paid to hang out with some guys. I mean, when you're working in something like racing, which, doing something wrong can have severe consequences. It's almost like being a football player or a veteran in the Army where, when you're hanging out with a bunch of guys and it's, literally life and death, there's just more of a closeness there than with a coworker at a regular job. And you got to respect that, and a lot of that's because everybody's there because they're doing what they want to do, and just the fact that, and it's a tough gig, and everybody's just really putting their best effort into it. And like I said, my crew is all unpaid, but man, they're golden. I wouldn't trade them for the world. So just very appreciative of all of them.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on, and I think especially in terms of news this week as well. Just to cover on it real quick, I'll do a quick rundown. There's just, I guess people like to joke that it's 2020, from of course the big news being that Michael Jordan is going to be starting a team with Denny Hamlin next season, and Bubba Wallace will be the driver. They're going to buy Jermaine Racing's charter. Let's see, Circuit of the Americas. Looks like that track might be. Looks like that track's going to be a cup race next season. Texas will host the All-Star race, replacing one of those dates. And then I know I'm forgetting one other thing. Ross Chastain going to the 42 next year, and then of course this morning I think it was announced that Homestead will be the second race of the Cup schedule next year, so it can follow in behind Daytona, which I find interesting and honestly not a bad move, since the fans of Daytona could probably turn right back around and go, oh, cool, we can go to another race at Homestead because it's right down the road, or within the same state. So, and of course, Ryan Vargas picking up TikTok as a sponsor. So,
there you go.
What a week of news.
Yeah,
yeah, you know what? Really awesome to see for Ryan. I really can't wait to see that car on track this weekend.
Yeah.
Yep. And you know what? It's all good stuff. I mean, I was really happy to see that for Ross Chastain. He's been around for quite a while, and, you know, he's been, you know, a top car. If not the winning car, he's always been very competitive and, you know, just an all-around good guy. And glad to see somebody like that get a chance to move up the Cup and get a regular ride. And, you know, as far as Michael Jordan starting a team, I mean, that's great, too. I think it's good for the sport. You know, I think NASCAR would love to have that market a little bit more open up to minorities, and the fact that you're getting a high-profile guy like Michael Jordan, and he's teaming up with Denny Hamlin, who's been in the sport forever. It should be a good team. Gives Bubba a chance to, to drive for a top-notch team. I can't imagine Michael Jordan getting involved in something that isn't a first-rate team. I'm sure they'll hire a good crew chief and should be a competitive car. So, that's another good thing.
I'm just really excited for everyone involved there, especially for Bubba. This could be a really big break for him here.
Yep. All the sponsors he's picked up as well with Columbia, DoorDash, of course, his sponsorship with Worldwide Technology. There's a lot going for him right now. It's pretty cool.
Yep. We wish those guys all the luck in the world. Really do. So, and then, of course, the Homestead deal. That makes sense. I mean, you're already at Daytona. Why not just keep going to Homestead? So that'll, I got a feeling maybe the pandemic drove a little bit of that because, this year they tried real hard to minimize the travel. They streamlined the schedule at the track. Everywhere we went this year, it was a one-day show. There was no overnight deal. We didn't have to stay in hotels. There wasn't a lot of activity at the track, which, obviously we missed the fans. We missed autograph sessions. But because of the pandemic, I know they were trying to cut some of that out. And I think they saw that they could streamline the schedule, the at-track schedule, but still put on a really good show. So I think they're taking some lessons learned from that and, maybe trying to cut down on the travel for some of the teams, save them some money in travel expense. And, we'll see. I mean, you got to take some positive out of this somewhere. So it's just a good thing. Yep.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to, of course, a lot of the big things that are going to come in 2021. And besides that, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about at all, or you want to make quick picks for this weekend?
Do you want to make what?
Quick picks. Just so we pick who's going to do good or win the races this weekend.
Yeah.
No, every time I pick, I'm always way wrong anyway. But, I don't have any real favorites. I mean, I pretty much like all the guys. I appreciate their effort, and, I really can't pick one over another, although I'll tell you what, I'd like to see a backmarker do real well. That always makes me feel good. Gives me a little bit of hope.
It works.
So, it wasn't that long ago. Brett Moffitt was always kind of at the back, and lately he's been running pretty darn good. So, it's good to see a guy put in the time and finally get to, move up to get a better deal going and run well. I like seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're also seeing that with Ross Chastain.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
In fact, I think I'm going to say that's probably my pick for the Xfinity race. Trucks, I definitely want to go with Connor Daly because he's become a friend of mine. I know it's a long shot, but he's with a decent team, so see what he can do.
Yeah. For trucks, I'm thinking Ben Rhodes. I believe Travis Pastrana is running in it, if I read that right.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's cool to see him.
LCQ League on iRacing in real life tonight with Travis Pastrana and Connor Daly.
Nice. And Xfinity, I'm liking Ross. And for Cup, I'm feeling a Penske driver. I'm feeling Brad or Joey.
Well, it's Las Vegas, so yeah, it's kind of hard to go against those guys.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I'll probably say Brad out of the two.
I'll tell you what, for Xfinity, I'd like to see one of Johnny Davis's car do really, really well. Johnny was a true friend of James Hilton, and anytime James needed a bailout or was hitting a low spot, Johnny Davis was always there for him. So I know Johnny's cars aren't necessarily front runners, but I'd really like to see a good finish by any one of his 4 cars, and even better, all 4 of his cars. So I'm pulling for Johnny's cars. Yep.
Yeah, particularly Ryan. You know, I'm probably biased with that just because Ryan's a friend of mine, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's honestly really cool to hear these stories about James Hilton, though. You know, I didn't know him very long, you know, because I got into ARCA, I think, 2017, but, you know, he was always someone who I talked to at the track every week. He was just really quite a character, you know. I think we actually ran into him at a hotel in Winchester when we were checking in. I think, Brad, you were there, too.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just really cool getting to know him.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yep. Yeah, he was definitely a legend. I mean, he was a trailblazer, and especially for some of us smaller guys, you know, James never had a major sponsor, but he was runner-up in Cup 3 different times, you know, twice to Petty and once to Pearson. He was a Rookie of the Year. I mean, he just did real well for having very little. And, you know, I mean, I just thought it was an honor to get to drive for one of the guys that I admired as a kid. And the reason I admired him, you know, my dad worked at Chrysler, you know, when I was growing up. And I remember the winged Charger Daytonas, and, you know, they called them the Winged Warriors. And, you know, Petty and Bobby Isaac and James Hilton were 3 of the guys, Buddy Baker, that were the Winged Warriors. And so, you know, from a very young age, I remember James Hilton. And he did a ton for the sport. Like I said, he did a lot for the little guys. He was a character, I'll tell you that. But it was just cool to get to drive for a guy like that. And I learned a lot from him too. You know, I raced against him for a number of years in ARCA, you know, and then when I was out, you know, he asked me to drive his cars, and like I said, I learned a lot from him. I learned how to race on a budget from James. You know, James was like broke when he passed away, but you know, he was still racing, and you know, we all said he was going to race till he died, and that's exactly what happened. And but I learned how to keep a team going, you know, just watching what he did, listening to what he did, learning why he did what he did. And it's kept me going now, just keeping his whole team going. You know, I'm still doing a lot of the things that James did. And just to honor, and he was a true Southern gentleman, you know, he's just a great guy. And, you know, we just hope I hope he's happy seeing what we're doing right now. So.
I'm sure he is.
I agree. I'm sure he is. I remember as a kid when he attempted I think it was the 2007 Daytona 500, I actually remember cheering for him to see if he could make the race.
Yep.
Yeah, same here.
Yep. And I think he was in it until the last corner or something like that of the qualifying race. So he just barely missed it. But.
Yeah, you know, I think I noticed that too when they went into his history, and then my mom started talking about how she used to watch him race. So just kind of started pulling for him right there.
Yep. I mean, James was in the sport darn near when it began. I mean, he was a crew chief for Rex White, crew chief for Ned Jarrett. I mean, you know, a lot of the big names he crew chiefed. And then he got in the car himself and did quite well. So he definitely a character. We love sitting around listening to his stories or listening to him tell stories to people at the track. You know, you kind of start half listening, and then before you know it, you're just sitting there just watching and listening, and just kind of starstruck by it all. So, you know, we're hoping someday they see fit to put him in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. We think that'd be just the greatest thing in the world. So we're kind of pushing that deal through NASCAR. So I'm hoping we're successful. A guy named Jeff Droke out of Memphis, is kind of the leader on that one, and he's pushing hard and he's making some connections and doing some lobbying. And like I said, don't be surprised if you see a James Hilton for, the Hall of Fame on the side of our car pretty soon. I think it's coming.
Yeah, I think we can both get behind that.
Definitely.
Yep. So, anyway, well, listen, guys, I got to get back on the road. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign off if you don't mind.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for coming
absolutely.
on. It was great talking to you.
All right. Good
Yeah,
talking
thank
to you guys too. Yep. All right. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Take care, Brad.
All right.
Yep. Bye bye.
And gear selector.
Okay.
But it's definitely coming from that general area.
The shifter shaft. Okay. But man, it seems good.
And that was Brad Smith, who was there with us here today. Big special thanks to him for.
Yeah, I think he's still on.
We're going to have to probably add some support.
Let me try something. Okay. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here on the podcast. I want to thank everyone so much for listening to today's podcast. Again, a special thanks to Brad Smith. It was absolutely great having him on. And with that, from Brad Smith, Michael Klein, and myself, Alex Gray, we're signing off, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Thank you.